Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Listeners, here we go again. And I don't think I've ever said this before on this show, but man, am I lucky. I still can't believe I'm sitting where I'm sitting, get to interview people from all over the world. We're season 3, episode 15. We have Jerry Dugan coming from Dallas, Texas. And it's just been an honor to get to research our guests, learn about them, have them share their expertise with me. And then I take those ingredients and implement them into my life. And it's been just such a big treat for me. And I want to say thanks to all the listeners for tuning in. And remember, this show is part of our nonprofit, and our nonprofit is C4 Leaders. And basically, we're the only nonprofit to utilize the pizza making process to create space for our companions to be seen, heard, and loved. Obviously, we write children's books. We have our second book coming out. You can go to pizzadays.org to check that out. And then I think what we really do is we build community with the most amazing handmade, hand-tossed sourdough pizza to bring out the best in each other. And thank you for supporting our important work. So let's get into our guest. Again, we're season 3, episode 15, Jerry Dugan, Dallas, Texas. You can find Jerry all over the place, but the best places are beyondtherut.com, on Instagram at Beyond the Rut, and then via his podcast, Beyond the Rut. So about our guest, Jerry Dugan is a CEO and senior consultant of BTR Impact LLC, a consulting and training company focused on helping leaders define success on their terms so they can live fulfilled, meaningful lives with impact and not lose their faith, their families, or their health. It was huge. His work experience includes serving in the U.S. Army as a combat medic, corporate training facilitator, and organizational development leader. He has led in combat zones and corporate offices, learning the ins and outs for building teams and trust through servant leadership. Since 2015, Jerry has been the host and producer of Beyond the Rut podcast, a show that shares encouraging stories and practical advice to help pull listeners out of their ruts and into lives worth living. It's not enough to get out of a rut. He wants you to live beyond the rut. Like I said, Jerry currently lives in Dallas, Texas, enjoying empty nester life. I can feel you with that one, Jerry. With his wife, Olivia. They have 2 adult children, 3 cats, a dog, and most importantly, no car loans, which is nice. Does that still hold true?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. and keeping a cash reserve so when it's time to replace that car, still no car loan. So that's the goal. My wife finally got a taste of that a couple years ago, and she's like, I like this. Kind of the same thing with empty nesting. We were worried that we were going to just be at a loss of what to do with our lives when our kids grew up and left the house, because we started young. But within a couple of months, my wife's like, what kids? I'm like, you lie.
Oh man, and it's so fun, because we have 2 kids as well. And what's up, Big Yo and Cece, and they're 25 and 27, and it's fun when they start to get of that age where they'll always be our children, but they turn from being your kids to being your friends.
Yes.
And oh man, we're having so much fun, and so fun to see them living their lives and making mistakes and learning and being able to share and grow together. So I'm sure you guys are going through some similar experience.
Oh yeah. In fact, somebody tattled on my daughter the other day, and she's 20, and I'm like, so what do you want me to do? Ground her? I mean, she's 20. She's a grown adult. If she made that mess, she can go clean it up. You don't need me to come in on this. And of course, I told my daughter, I'm like, hey, somebody reached out to me, total stranger, and demanded I do something about you. And I'm like, so I guess I'm here to tell you you're grounded for 2 weeks. Or until this total stranger tells me it's okay. I don't know. And she just laughed. She said it made her day. She was going through a rough patch with some folks. And, but yeah.
That's great. That's what it's all about.
Right?
It's all about. So excited to explore just life with you during this episode. And we always start with a thought of the day, and which is
Awesome.
a quote that I've picked after researching you. And I love how, I feel like you're big into servant leadership. If I could pick a couple words to describe you after listening to you on a podcast, reading up about you, that one just seemed to really jump out. And so this is a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Mm.
Here it is. It is one of the most beautiful compensations of life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. Serve, and thou shall be served. Why would I pick that one for you?
Oh man, I think it's spot on, really, because I mean, for me personally, my family were avid Christians, not in the sense of let's Bible thump and make everybody believe what we believe, uh, but really, how do we serve people? How do we emulate this person, Jesus, and how did he live and lead? And just going out there and taking care of folks, whether or not there's anything in it for yourself. One of the examples I was taught was there was a time where Jesus healed like 10 people. 9 of them took off running. I'm like, peace, thanks. They didn't even say thank you. They just took off. It was like the 10th person who actually turned around and said thank you so much. And he's like, yeah, don't go talking about it. Just go. You have a good day. I'm paraphrasing horribly, but anyway, that was like just you make the world a better place when you serve others. You give other people hope when you serve others, and then it really does pay it forward. That movie back in the late '90s, early 2000s, Pay It Forward. It works. It's easy to get kind of bogged down and think, well, what's in it for me? There's a little bit, like in business, it's easy to get into that trap because things are traded. But really, when you're serving others, especially when you're leading, you're taking care of them so they can take care of the things they need to go do. And I love doing that. I've seen a lot of impact in my own career because of it. I've seen a lot of peace of mind in how I lead others. So I know that I'm not leading somebody by manipulating them. I'm leading them strictly by guiding them, asking of them, and rewarding them. And it's always paid off for me. I can't think of a time where it did not pay off for me.
I love it. And then just in reading the quote, it didn't hit me when I picked this for you, but obviously want to thank you for your work that you did in the service and for all that you've done in that space, especially having Memorial Day just passed.
Yeah.
And reading this quote again, is one of the most beautiful compensations of life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. And I think in your role as a combat medic, and being in that space of life and death and realizing, hey, we're in this thing together and we got to help each other out to get through these tough challenges. And it just hit me in thinking about that as well. It's
actually where I learned the concept of servant leadership before I even became a Christian. That's where I got a taste of it. It's where I saw it practiced on me. It's where I was taught to practice it with others. Selfishness is really frowned upon in the U.S. Army. That there are things that you do because of intrinsic. I want to get better. I want to get promoted. I want to get paid more. I want the accolades. I want the successful career. There are those elements in all of us. However, if you let that override your commitment to the team, the commitment to the people you're leading, that's when people just come out of the woodwork and you are in deep doo-doo at that point. Like Simon Sinek, talked about leaders eat last. He learned that from the Marine Corps. That's heavily practiced in the U.S. Army as well, and especially among the enlisted ranks. I don't know if officers do it more often these days. But, they really do make sure like the lower enlisted eat first before they go eat, because nothing's more demoralizing when your soldiers are hungry, they're tired, they're overworked, and their leader comes back from a big lunch like, hey guys, I just had a big lunch, let me tell you what I learned today. It's like, wait, you ate lunch? Doesn't go well.
And so many great lessons. And it sounds like it's made such a big impact on who you are today. But I always like to start going back, and you can take this any which way you want, but what was life like growing up? Go into any period of that can help the listeners make sense of, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, a little bit of a roller coaster. The shorter version, or my attempt at the shorter version, is I was born an Army brat. So my dad was serving in the U.S. Army as a military policeman. He was married to a woman he met when he was stationed in Thailand in the 1970s. So my mom was a tiger mom, the stereotypical tiger mom that was very strict. You had to have like your shoes off in the house, don't make a mess, do your chores, do your homework, get not just good grades, get the best grades in the class. So if you've ever gotten in trouble because you weren't the top score on every quiz, then you might not relate to my childhood there. But everything was provided for. My dad, very gentle guy. Whenever, and as a military policeman, I think he was like automatically the good cop when they did good cop, bad cop. Just like you always had that guy playing when you played football, he was like automatic quarterback for both teams. That was my dad. Automatic good cop no matter what. Even if he wanted to be the bad cop, they're like, you don't have the capability to be a bad cop. You come in with the donuts and the milk like you always do. We got this. And whenever they were investigating anything, they would just confess to everything. The moment he walked in with donuts or cupcakes or whatever it was, he would just say, "Hey, how's it going? Here, have some donuts." And he wasn't trying to be manipulative. That was genuinely him. Like, this guy's hungry, they're scared, let me give them some cupcakes or some donuts or a candy bar from the vending machine. And that was it. The person would just fess up to everything. Yeah, my buddies and I, we decided to steal this, this, and this, and we broke into here, and it was Johnny's plan, and I'm so sorry. I thought it would be cool because I wanted to impress this girl. And he's like, that was a lot more information than I expected, but thank you, and your lawyer's on the way. Have a nice day. And off he goes. That was my dad. Anyway, tangent, but my dad's visiting, so I'm just thinking about my dad a lot right now. But fast forward a little bit. My parents divorced when I was 11, and it was not a clean divorce at all. My mom had this insecurity that my dad was going to leave first. Never was going to happen, but it's there. Fears are fears. And somebody came in, took advantage of that fear, manipulated her to leave us. My dad was just devastated. He became suicidal. My brother and I was 11. My brother was 9. We're in Germany now. My mom's in the United States somewhere with this new guy. And my brother and I are trying to figure out, how do we keep dad from killing himself? So we're doing things like hiding the knives, hiding the forks. He's trying to hang himself. Okay, anything that can wrap around your neck, we're hiding that. He's trying to overdose on medication. Okay, well, how do you read these labels? Okay, that's what that means. Okay, well, we're going to hold on to these for you, Dad. You get them from us when it's time to take them. He's saying about like running his car off the Autobahn and dying in a fiery ball of something. Well, we know how long it takes for him to drive from point A to point B, and he better be at work by the time we call, because if not, we'll call his boss, because it's just one digit difference, and we'll tell his boss everything that's going on. And so we were doing that for about 2 months, maybe. And then my dad almost succeeded. I mean, I just mentioned he's visiting, so he didn't succeed ultimately, but he did manage to hang himself. Fortunately, the rope snapped. He fell to the floor. It left a mark on his neck. And so even though my brother and I swore we weren't going to tell anybody, in the Army, when you have uniform standards, there's no way he's hiding a mark from ear to ear that a rope gave him. And so his boss saw it the next morning after PT when the sun came up, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on with your neck there?" And he's like, "Oh, just cut it shaving," or just try to make up some excuse. Well, his boss said, "That doesn't sound right. Hey, so-and-so, come here, keep an eye on this guy. I think he's attempting to hurt himself." And they immediately just went into work to help save him. My dad's boss called me. We were at home during the summer, and he just asked, "Hey, how did your dad get that red mark?" And I was like, red mark? What red mark? And he's like, "I'm looking right at it." And he's like, "It's okay. We're trying to help your dad. You're going to be fine. You're all going to be fine. But I just need to know, is he trying to hurt himself?" And as soon as he asked that, I knew we have help. Like, we really have help. This guy's here to help us. I know I can trust this guy because he and my dad have known each other their entire careers. So over a decade, they've served together off and on in different places. And so I just told Sergeant First Class Moss everything for the last 2 months. And he's like, "This started the day you guys got here. Like the night when you guys had dinner at my house." I was like, "Yeah, the next day is when all this really started." He goes, "All right. First, I'm sorry I didn't notice this sooner. Second, help is on the way. We're coming now. We're going to pack some bags. It's all going to be okay." And sure enough, yeah, my dad got the help he needed. My brother and I were in foster care for the first time. The only time in our whole lives. And I think we were there for about 3, maybe 4 weeks. and it was the first time we got exposed to a healthy family dynamic. Like this family, like prayed together at mealtime. They generally, like my brother and I, if we got into a fight, we fought like punches, bites, scratches, kicks, try to drown each other in the toilet. I mean, whatever it was we could do to fight, we fought. These guys fought a completely different way. They went into separate rooms until they calmed down. They came together and they talked things out. They were the same ages as us, the kids. And we thought, this is so weird. How do they, what? I've never seen this before. Um, and they just modeled a way for us that we had never seen before. We eventually get you reunited with my dad. You think everything's all hunky-dory at that point, but turns out my dad's side of the family is much more toxic than we needed them to be. A couple other guys were going through divorce, so you have all these hurt people. So where my dad was getting the emotional support he needed from his parents, his brothers and sisters, I was pretty much getting bullied by a couple of uncles, a couple of cousins, some neighbor across the street at my grandparents' house. I hated the weekends while my dad was like, hey, we're going up to grandpa's house. We're going to hang out. We're going to get some work done. We're going to get some extra money earned. You get to play with all your cousins. It'll be great. I hated it because sometimes we'd have fun, but a lot of times I get made fun of, called gook, half breed, boat person. I mean, you name it. If it was an Asian derogatory statement, I was called it by my own family. And by 14 years old, it just sort of hit me that I don't have to continue this way. I don't have to go down this path. A lot of folks in my family on my dad's side have this woe is me. There is no future for us. There's no point in doing well in school. We still have to go work a hard day's work. There's no point in building relationships. They just leave you anyway. A lot of woe is me. And I just thought that seems like that would be true if I hadn't seen all these other examples around me, like the O'Neill family in Germany that took care of us as foster parents. They were completely different than my family. My friends from school loved going on vacation where I dreaded it. They loved going on vacation with their families. They looked forward to going to the grandparents' house. They got along with their siblings. And I thought either they're nuts or they are experiencing a completely different way of life that means that I could also create that for myself in my future. And so at 14 years old, I got a bunch of Christmas cards from like the dollar store. I was earning money, mowing grass for a retiree who would travel with his wife in their golden years. And for $20 a month, I was mowing and watering his grass. So I took that money, I bought those cards, and I wrote on every single card my vision for a future. And it was just, I envision a life where people hear our last name and they think good things. That we can walk into a store and security isn't following us around because we have a reputation for stealing and just vandalizing and being thugs. That we can get married and stay married. That our kids would want to be engaged with us. That our grandkids would be that they would thrive under this environment that we've created. And so I want to create that for our future. And hopefully you're around to see it happen. And I gave that card out to almost everybody in my family, cousins, aunts, uncles. And it was about 50-50. Half of them were like, wow, this is inspiring. Go for it. And the other half was like, who the heck are you? To think you could be better than us. And they wanted to bring me down. And around that time, my dad's like, you never have to go back there again. They don't treat you well. You don't deserve that. You can stay home when I go up to my, grandma and grandpa's. And so that was pretty much it. Go off to college. I'm the first in my family to not only go to college, but graduate. Of course, as a pre-med student and a 2.1 GPA and no money left, I'm not going to med school. And I learned later on that becoming a doctor wasn't really my dream. That was my mom's dream. She was always the one that said, you're going to go to school, get good grades, become a doctor, and make lots of money. And so I thought that's what I had to do because that's what people do to become rich and wealthy and free. And it wasn't until later after I served in the Army. So yeah, broke, no GPA, still thought I wanted to be a doctor. So where can I go to get training and a paycheck and get to travel? The U.S. Army seemed to be the right answer. So I joined, became a medic, went through basic training, the same place where I was born. So that was fun because filling out paperwork, And the drill sergeants would see me put Fort Sill, Oklahoma down as my birthplace, and they would think I messed up. And so they get mad, say, pay attention. I'd be doing push-ups until somebody came along to verify, no, he indeed was born here 20 some odd years ago. And they're like, wow, your recruiters had fun with you. And I'm like, it seems like a drill sergeant, as I'm still doing push-ups. And they're like, oh yeah, recover, get back up. So yeah, went through my one enlistment as a medic, met my wife after 1 year. She was also a medic. So she was like right behind me in her career. I'd come back from a tour in Kosovo. This is all pre 9/11. And our platoon sergeant and platoon leader paired us up since I was sort of a seasoned deployed veteran and she was brand new out of training. We got paired up so that I could share with her everything I learned. And of course, when I met her, I'm like, wow, she's pretty cute. She's nice. She talks about a lot more than just getting drunk. And this is really nice. So I was teaching her everything I learned in Kosovo, and that took 4 days. I was like, I learned more than this about how to be a medic in a combat zone. But yeah, within 4 days, I taught her everything. It was like all day for 4 days straight. Even a night exercise, we'd gone out, our platoon, and I was just like, at this point, I was just making up stuff that I knew about, but we would never actually use. I'm like, yeah, did you know that you could take an infrared chem light, crack it, activate it, and then pop the top off and get a syringe, and I'm like, and you could do this, and you could do markings, and you can only see it with infrared goggles on. And she's like, wow, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah. And then of course that next day, I'm like, I need more information. So I'm like grabbing field manuals. I signed up for correspondence courses because this was before you could do online continuing education in the Army. And so I signed up for like correspondence courses where they mail you a booklet and a quiz. And I didn't care if I passed the courses or not. I was just pulling information out and saying, yeah, I learned this in Kosovo. And this went on for a month. And then they sent me to the field. I came back and I eventually had the courage to ask her out after about 3 months. And she said, what took you so long? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I've been dropping hints for 3 months that I like you. I'm like, what? Like what? And she's like, do you really think I cared about infrared chem lights and setting up emergency landing zones? I'm like, yeah, because that's why I kept talking about it. She goes, no, I just wanted to spend more time with you. So I just kept saying, yes, that's interesting. And then it just hit me and I'm like, that's flirting? She goes, yeah, like girls do it all the time. Like we could not care less about what you're talking about, but we'll sound interested. And not only did I realize she liked me, but I realized going all the way back to high school, all the moments a girl liked me, and it just went over my head. And I'm like, wow. Okay. So yeah, we eventually get married. We have 2 kids. 21 years later, yeah, we're here. Empty nesters. Left my job a few months back, published a book, launched a company, and helping leaders with a few skills that'll help them engage their employees, grow their employees, and then give them that balance they're looking for in their own lives. So,
man, I love it. And obviously I can't replay any of that other than it seemed like a turning point for you really was probably, I mean, you had a lot of difficult situations that you went through. I couldn't imagine having to be 11 and try and have that worry about your dad taking his life, especially after your mom had already left. But then feeling like you got the help of people that you could trust that were going to help your dad, and then getting into foster care and not knowing what that's going to look like. And I imagine you're like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to get reunited? And then having these beautiful family allow you to see a different normal. I think that's part of the challenges in life. Everybody always thinks they grow up that life is normal because that's all they know in that family. And then they get a different exposure like you did. And it sounds like that really totally changed the whole trajectory of your life and led to those vision cards that you created, which also inspired your dad to see that you were different in the best possible way. And that going back to your family wasn't in your best interest. And your dad couldn't see that before, and then took this step towards, hey, here's my vision. This doesn't line up with it. And now he adds up 1 and 1 and says, wait a second, I've been doing this wrong. You stay here, because this is taking you off your path of where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to be doing. So wow, that's just an incredible story. And the show is called Life's Essential Ingredients. And I love the title of it because I think these ingredients change throughout our life. And we have these different essentials, so to say, that perhaps at some point serve a purpose. And then as we go through life, they don't. And my question to you is, what are maybe what's, I haven't asked this before, but what's maybe one ingredient that while you were growing up, you thought was essential, and then as you matured, you realized, man, that ingredient really hasn't served me well. I don't like the taste of it. And I'm going to totally remove that from my life, is the first part of the question. And the second part is, what are your essential ingredients now? Mm-hmm. And perhaps how can the listener take one or two of those and say, man, I kind of would like the taste of that. I want to implement that and put that onto my life's recipe.
Yeah. The one that I have in my head right now that is just glaring and it makes sense when I think about the book and the 5 F's that I'll talk about in a moment. It was the idea that my value or my worth was dependent upon achievements. So, affection for my mother tended to come from if I did well in school. If I got that top grade in the class, I was worthy of praise. I was worthy of attention. And if I did, and not even poorly, if I got the second place finish on a quiz, so very competitive for my mom, because she would always ask what was the highest grade, and why did you not get 100? I came home once with a 98. It was by far the highest grade anybody else got. The next highest grade was like 73% on the test. My mom's response was, "What happened to the other 2 points?" And that kind of hits home when you're only 9 years old or 8 years old. You start to think you have to perform in order to be loved or appreciated. And that carried, oh man, I'd say through a big chunk of my Army life, that you had to be a high performer to be of value in the world, to be of value as a person, and to realize that does not matter at all, that you are you. And what matters is how well you connect with others and how well you just strive to be your best for you. Define success on your terms, essentially. And starting to realize that my pursuit of becoming a doctor was my mom's dream. I played tuba since I was in 7th grade, all through college. I loved playing tuba. However, there came a point where band directors wanted me to keep playing because tuba players are a hot commodity. We're hard to come by because everybody wants to play the cool instruments like jazz flute and jazz flute, saxophone or trombone or trumpet, guitar, those kinds of things. And you never really think about the guy that plays long whole notes is cool. So that's something I let go of at some point in my life. And what I've eventually adopted, and this became part of my book, and the show for years, is the 5 F's. So if we look at our lives, there are kind of 5 main ingredients that you need to have some element of all these ingredients going well in a healthy way to have that balance that you're looking for in a life well lived. And so the first one for me is faith. So for me, my faith journey, putting God first, Jesus first, is huge for me. And above anything else, what's my relationship like with Christ? That's huge for me. Now, for somebody who's not Christian, maybe it's what's that bigger cause you're going for to make the world a better place? That's my way of inviting y'all in. The second ingredient is family, those family connections, because you heard from my life story as a child. I got to watch families disintegrate in front of me. The guy that went after my mom and split my parents up was also married with 2 kids, and he thought his worth came from his ability to woo women around the world. And if only he had the character to realize his treasure was at home waiting for him to come back. And if he just had his faith in, had faith that was going to be much more fulfilling than these conquests, because my mom eventually dumped the guy when she realized who he was and what he was doing. His stuff was out front when he came home one day from work. And she's like, yeah, we're done. You've done so much damage here. Um, so family is number two, and then number three is fitness, not just physical fitness but mental fitness, emotional fitness, so that wellness component, because we got to take care of ourselves to be able to function well in anything. um, Money, a lot of folks, we're taught to pursue money, get that six-figure income, that seven, everybody's always boasting, do my 7 steps and you get a seven-figure income, overnight. Finance for me is fourth on the totem pole. Like, yeah, you need money to get things done and do things. However, it's just a tool. It's you need to invest some for the future. You need to definitely be giving some to a cause better than yourself, bigger than yourself, and it's really a tool. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. My wealth does not determine my worth, and so getting past net worth was another thing. And then the last one, future possibilities. What are the things I'm doing to grow myself for a better future? I'm at 47 right now while we're recording this. It's easy to say I've been there, done that, and just hang it all up. But the reality is there's still so much of this planet I haven't seen. There's so many cultures I haven't learned about. There are things my kids are about to do in their lives that I haven't witnessed yet. So I haven't really finished in life. There's so much more I can do, learn, and contribute to the world around me. So yeah, those 5 ingredients, 5 F's: faith, family, fitness, finances, and future possibility.
Mm. Love it. I love it. And I don't know if you know or don't know, and listeners, we don't even barely talk about it, but C4, I love hearing your 5 F's because I live my life with these 4 C's, communication, chemistry, consistency, and creativity. And I'm sure if we shared the definitions, which, I won't get into because this show's about you, but there would be definitely some alignment
Oh yeah.
with those. But one of the things I want to get into is, in your bio and research, and you talk about helping individuals define success on their terms.
Yes.
So how would you define success on your terms right now? And has that definition changed as you've evolved?
Oh yeah. The details and how I go about it has changed over the years. But essentially, if I were to say my life's mission in one sentence, it would be to live my life with virtue and valor, because virtue and valor is by virtue and valor is actually the motto on the Dugan crest. Somebody somewhere, I think in the 1500s, became knighted or got knighted and said, "Yeah, we're gonna slap that on the family crest now." So there's that, and I really just strive to be somebody that my children will look up to for guidance, that will have a strong relationship with his grandkids, and in my interactions with others, that I leave the world a better place through that. And that is my simple little mission statement. And what guides it are, again, those 5 F's. So I take a look at, what does success look like in my faith walk? It's simply, for me, that I do put my trust in God first, that the first part of my day is spent in silence, in prayer, that if I come across success, I give credit to God. If I come across struggle, I go to God for some guidance, at least to calm down, center myself, and get that guidance. Nothing hairy or audacious. I don't have to lead a church. I don't have to be the biggest men's ministry leader ever. I've come across friends where we thought that that's what made us good Christians. But really, am I walking the walk as well as the talk? And yeah, am I serving others? Am I so those are the kind of questions that drive me, that let me know if I'm doing well in my faith life. Family life, it's staying married, keeping my marriage healthy, and looking at, above any other big decision in my life, considering the closeness between my wife and I. If I feel like we're drifting apart, then work needs to be done to bring us closer together. So success for me is long, happy marriage where my wife and I are just heavily engaged with each other. And so it's not like 50 years, but we totally hated each other's guts. It's like 50 years or more. And we're that couple from the movie Up, holding hands, and just, maybe I'll get a balloon stand someday. I made some Boy Scout who takes me to South America. I don't know. Maybe not exactly that movie, but we want to be that couple that just, we're cherishing each other the rest of our lives. And yeah, fitness, just nothing big, hairy, or audacious. Just to be able to walk up a flight of stairs, maybe tie my shoes without, gasping for air, um, being able to hike, those kinds of things. So yeah, I have things on my bucket list that all tie into these things. So fitness is one of the areas I'm working on now that I've made this transition out of my corporate life. Finances are just simply enough money to retire off of comfortably. So, we have some investment goals in mind that my wife and I have talked about. We have some income needs. We've eradicated debt, and yeah, so yeah, nothing big, hairy, audacious. Like we don't have to have $1 billion, but just what kind of life do we want to have, and then how does money fit into that? And then the future is just I know I want to travel. My wife wants to travel if that involves getting to see grandkids, which we don't have yet. But um, so knowing that we have to have that kind of lifestyle that allows us to go see our family when we want. So for us, that's success on our terms. And anything that gets in the way of those 5 categories is a no for us. Like we have these guardrails now. Like the job I left, just 7 months ago from the time we're recording this, 8 months ago now. Wow, 8 months, that flew by. Uh, but the decision to leave that job, it was a nice income, highest salary I've ever earned in my life, highest level of position I've ever held in my career. And we left that job. We decided to leave that job because of its impact on my family life and my health. Um, like when it got me to a point where I was so stressed out that my son would come to visit, and as soon as he got home back in Corpus Christi, 6 or 7 hours away, would call my wife and ask, "Are you and Dad okay?" Like that was a big red flag for me. It turns out months prior to that, when our daughter was getting ready to move up here to Dallas, she had come to visit, and when she got home, asked the same thing: "Are you and Dad okay?" And both times, my wife said, "Yeah, we are fine. We're good. There's nothing between us that is going to shatter us. But your dad is going through a tough time at work, and it's taking a toll on him, and he doesn't know it, but he's bringing it home."
Mm.
And when she shared that with me, um, it was instantaneous. She shared that with me on a Sunday. It was a holiday weekend, so we had Monday off. Tuesday morning, I turned in a letter of resignation. Like I was done. It didn't matter where I was going after that. That job had to end, and boundaries went up. Any ask for me to work beyond business hours, sorry, I can get that done in the morning. Because I just realized, wow, this job was putting a strain on me, which put a strain on my marriage to a point where my kids noticed. So we had an outside source to kind of let us know. And so, that's defining success on my terms. It's, a lot of people would think you just got to suck it up. You got to provide for your family. You can't just hang up your career like that. That'll be career suicide. Defining success on your own terms says, no, these areas of my life are way more important, and that job doesn't mean anything to me in comparison to my relationship with my wife and the relationship with my kids and their sense of safety that Dad is okay. And so, yeah, we hung that job up. Don't regret it at all. I love it. So
No, that's powerful and huge that you have such great relationships where your kids can give you that feedback. And then obviously you and your wife have a great relationship where you can sit and listen to the feedback and say, okay, I got to take action. And I love how you had your decision tree kind of lined up of, hey, this isn't lining up with what we value.
yeah.
So yeah, very cool. And congrats on that. How do you, let's get into some of the work you do with your clients. Say you get a client come in and they're a new client to you and they just don't have a clue on what success is for them. What's the steps for perhaps a listener that's listening and just like, I'm kind of lost with what direction I need to go. How do you help people take that first step towards defining success, and what does that look like for them?
Yeah, folks keep asking me if I do coaching. I'm like, no, I don't do coaching. I can't scale it. But what I do offer organizations are workshops. So if somebody's feeling that, this is a great time to kind of or pitch to their organization's leadership and say, hey, I think it'd be really great if we had a workshop for half a day or a whole day where we brought this guy in just to help us think about the ruts we're stuck in, whether it's our career or our life, and do it as part of maybe a team building session. And so I'll come in, I'll share a little bit about my story and about this RUT model, recognize the rut you're in, understand where you want to go, and then take action to get there. And then from there, we just look at those 5 areas of your life: faith, family, fitness, finances, and your future, and give you the space to really think that through, to talk it out, to, test it in a sense. And when you're done with this workshop, you have essentially, this is my vision for my life. And this is how I want that vision to look in my faith journey, whether it's with Christianity or something else. This is what I want my vision to look like for my family. And this is what it looks like in my health and my finances and the future that hasn't happened yet. But this is where I want to be 15, 20, 30 years from now. Or if you're like me, when I'm on my deathbed, this is what I hope is happening around me. And we just work through that. Very reflective, small groups, big group, some activities to help unlock all those things, so that when you're done, you have essentially a life plan. So you know your vision, you know what it looks like in the 5 F's, and you've identified 2 or 3 action-oriented goals that say, this is the stake in the ground, and this is how I'm going to start building this life starting today. And you also have some guardrails. In business, we talk about having strategic guardrails. These are the things our business will always do. These are the things our business will never do. And when you have that vision and you have that strategy in place and you have those guardrails in place with those 5 F's, you know what to say yes to now in your life. You know what to say no to. And so that's how I help people in a group setting. I'd love to help people in a coaching setting, but the reality is I just wouldn't be able to reach enough people and help enough people to do that. But workshops are kind of how I'm wired as well. One-on-one, I'll probably do all the talking like we're doing right now. I'm sorry. But in a workshop, it's weird. In a workshop, I've learned to shut up and let them do the work and then bring them back and ask for feedback from them. So it's kind of an interesting thing. You'll get more work done with me in a workshop than you will with me doing coaching one-on-one.
Yeah, no, I love it. Again, we're on with Jerry Dugan from beyondtherut.com. And I'm sure a lot of this is resonating with the listeners. So yeah, check them out and reach out to them. I know a big part of who you are is servant leadership. What exactly, if someone's not familiar with those terms, what exactly does that look like?
Yeah. I think most of us have ridden on a flight before, and maybe you've watched the safety briefing that happens at the very beginning, especially if it's a funny one, right? And when they talk about the masks coming down from the ceiling in case the cabin depressurizes, what they tell you to do is to put the mask on yourself first, so that you're able to put the mask on your neighbor, your loved ones. And servant leadership is kind of like that, in the sense that you take care of yourself to the extent where you're able to take care of others, but your real focus is to be able to take care of others. So in servant leadership, the way I learned it in the military is that you take care of the people who take care of the mission. So as a leader, I'm making sure that they are equipped, empowered, and that they have clarity on what the job is that they need to do. I have a framework that I teach organizations as well called Leadership Tent. So stake your leadership tent. And people ask me, why a tent? Yeah, and for me, as a camper, as a military guy, tents are very versatile. You put them up where you need them to be. The military uses tents for their command centers. So they put the tent up, it protects the computers and the communications equipment. But inside that tent is where information is flowing in and out and making things happen. Now, I learned early on in my Army career, and it reinforced again when I got into backpacking about 7 or 8 years ago, is that the fastest way to put that tent up is to stake out the corners first. And I remember there was a time where I went on my first field exercise out of training, and it would take like 10 of us about 2 hours to put up a general purpose tent, a medium-sized tent. About 2 hours. Yeah, we would hold up the poles, and then somebody would drop their pole because they had to scratch their nose, or they sneezed, or they had to go to the bathroom, and then the whole thing would collapse, and we'd pick the poles back up, and somebody would stake everything out, and then we'd have to readjust all the poles and restake it all. It was just like a nightmare. And we found out at the end of the training exercise that the average time and the standard to put that tent up was like less than 15 minutes with 4 people. And I'm like, that's baloney. That can't be done, because we had 10 and it took more than 2 hours, almost 3 hours when you count the camouflage netting. And they said, oh yeah, both of those within 15 minutes with 4 people. And they said the way you do it is you stake out the 4 corners, then you pop it up, and then you put the lines out that support those four corners. So your leadership tent, T, is as a leader, you're doing things that build trust with your people. So you communicate in a way that's consistent. Um, you treat people in a way that respects their dignity, and you never tell a lie. You're transparent with those who you lead. And so some of the things I teach around that would be having a leadership credo and having it like as a 3-sentence credo. This is what I believe in. This is my style of leadership, and this is what you can expect. As a result of this belief and this style, you can expect this kind of environment from me. And so I teach that as a way to build trust with your teams. E stands for empowering. And so you empower people by giving them power in their voice, but also power in their actions. So power in their voice is really, giving them a space where they can share their ideas, question instructions they don't quite understand or they know won't work. But then empowering their actions is sharing enough of your power, your authority, that they can make decisions within certain boundaries, so they don't have to bug you all the time for every little decision that has to be made. And so I provide some teaching around rounding, talking intentionally with the people on your team. And that does two things. It builds trust, but it also gives them power to their voice and may lead to some projects that help them grow. So the next letter intent is navigating. So navigating their career for success. One of the top reasons why people are leaving companies right now, other than they don't feel cared for, is they don't see opportunities for growth. And while companies are trying to create career pathways, the managers, the leaders of these teams are struggling with, what can I do as the manager to grow my employees when I'm waiting for a career path to come in, or a formal training or development program to be implemented, or that program's only around once a year and we got to wait 12 months. Delegation is probably the number one thing a leader can do to develop the people on their team. And so I teach delegation, the barriers we have as leaders to keep us from delegating, and then what is a 4-tier decision model that allows somebody who's getting a responsibility delegated to them to have clarity on what can I do with this area of responsibility my leader just gave me. And I call it the carry, crawl, walk, run. So I won't get into it a whole lot here because it takes like 2 hours to unpack, but essentially your goal is to get somebody developed to the point where they can take this responsibility and run with it. It is theirs. They're the go-to person. And if they wind up getting promoted out of the team or into another role in the team, that's okay, because now they freed up a space for somebody else to move in and take over that responsibility and eventually get to that run phase. So it gives clarity on what I'm giving to you, what your responsibility level is, and how much decision you can make around that. And then the last T, intent, is thriving together. So recognizing that we have more milestones in somebody's career than just you made it another year without getting fired or you had a birthday. And so recognizing if somebody led a team meeting for the first time in their career or in their tenure with your company, celebrate it. Say, hey, Jerry over there just led this meeting for the first time. Give him a round of applause for doing that. When you go back to when I talked about rounding with your employees intentionally, there's a question in that rounding conversation where it's like, who's somebody on the team you think should be recognized for doing a great job? And then the next chance you get, you celebrate that and let that person know, I only know about that because Susan over there told me that's what you did for her. And I just want to publicly let everybody know that was really cool. People have noticed it had a positive impact in these ways. And so you're thriving together by celebrating these wins, because you got to build this capital up, because we're going to make mistakes. And the best thing to do when you make a mistake is learn from it and be like a major league pitcher who just gave up a home run, shake it off and strike out the next guy. And we got to have that in our career. So that thriving together is really having that environment where we know we're going to make mistakes, but here are all the good things we're doing. Shake that one off, learn from it, go back to winning. So that's staking out your leadership tent.
I love it. I love it. Let's get into, I imagine a lot of the stuff you've been talking about is in your book, and it's all great stuff that you're sharing, but is there, walk the listener through why they need to go out and get your book? And congrats on being an author and publishing a book. And I was looking at some of the reviews, and it seems like it's getting, it's helping a lot of people. So yeah,
Yes.
that's amazing. So yeah, walk the listener through, why they need to get out and get your book.
Yeah. Not only because it was a bucket list item of mine, I can die now. No, I'm kidding. I still have a lot of work to do. And my daughter said I have to be at her wedding someday. But anyway, if you are feeling you're stuck in a rut, or you know people who feel stuck in a rut, and you just want a chance to kind of look up and look forward in life, that's what this book is all about. It's the podcast's manifesto that talks about here's some steps to take to recognize whether or not you're in a rut, and to recognize some truths about that rut. Like, it's not as deep as we think it is, and it's much easier to get out of that rut than we think it is. And so I share some stories around that to help paint that picture, and then understand where you want to go. How do you set goals for yourself? How do you say, this is what I really want in my life, and explore those 5 F's? And then taking action to get there. I provide some tips on how to write a goal so that it's successful. I talk about 4 ingredients that help you succeed in your goals, and some daily activities and tips and tricks that I use as somebody with ADHD, most likely, because my daughter has it and they all blame me for it. Is I use things like Pomodoro technique to stay focused, because just tell me to focus is a joke. It's like, haha, that's funny. I'm going to go now play with my camping gear that's right above me for 4 hours. And so I have to have certain mechanisms in place to make sure I'm staying on task. So, checklists, journaling, things of that nature, 20-second rule. So there are a lot of things around me that I have set up to overcome any barriers I might have. So that's what you get out of the book. I don't just tell my own story. In fact, I don't tell my story till the end of the book. A lot of this is just, you're the hero of this journey. And I share with you the journeys of other people who've been guests on my show, who've overcome their ruts as well. So you're reading from them, you're learning from them, and you're applying this to your own life. You're setting the stage for your own life, your own success. And then in the end, I'll share my story with you. And if you don't like that chapter, you just skip over it to the last part. So lots of great resources in there for you in life overall.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, beyondtherut.com, beyondtherut.com. And again, you got to tune into his podcast, Beyond the Rut. The website has a cool kind of downloadable action steps that you could take. So yeah, so many great things, Jerry, and congrats on just figuring out your life where you're at right now, and learning from your mistakes and moving on and sharing them with people. And I'm going to get to the end here of the show, and we always end with this legacy question. There's a quote from John Alston that I love that says, the only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind. And I know you shared that you're 47. Hopefully you could live another 50 years. So let's make you 97. You're on your deathbed. You're surrounded by your kids and your grandkids and maybe great grandkids at this time. And your heart is full, getting ready to take your last breath. What is it you want as you're leaving this earth that you want the people in that room to feel? And what are you going to leave behind with them?
Yeah. The fact that they're in the room in that moment all together, that is the legacy I want to have. I've seen men, I've been to funerals where hardly anybody's there. I've been in somebody's home after they passed away, and their children are not a part of their life even. They and I don't want that for my own life. And so my hope is my children, grandchildren, and maybe even great grandchildren are there. And hopefully they've seen how I lived my life and say, I want that for my family too. And that's what I've done. And the grandkids, who are probably adults by then, saying the same thing. I want what he did for my life, and whatever struggles they've got, that's what they're striving for.
Love it. I love it. And listeners, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. We've been talking to Jerry Dugan from Dallas, Texas. Again, check him out at beyondtherut.com. So Jerry, thank you so much. My Pasho usually gets us out of here, but boom, baby, that just happened. Thanks.